Hi there.
Hello, everyone.
Last week we spoke about the idea or phenomenon of flow. And then we said we had such a long talk
There's so much to say.
uh, that we said this week we're going to look a little bit more at the practical aspect as to how do you get into flow? What helps to tap into flow? um, more on a practical level. And we touched on the issue last week of creativity. And let's use that as a springboard because it's a very concrete example. Say you are busy sculpting. What helps you when you're busy there in the pottery studio? What helps you to get into flow?
I think the main obstacle when I do that is that my critical mind plays up
Mm.
and keeps telling me, and it's the ego and it's fear. You don't know how to do this. You cannot sculpt a hand. So the ego will constantly say, no, it doesn't look like that. It can't be like that. So in order for me to quiet that voice, I have to be a little bit devious actually.
Mm.
And I put on an audiobook. That's one of the things that I do. If I know feeling very unsure of myself going into a project, I will really start out like that and put on an audiobook that is quite demanding, that my logical mind has to really focus on.
Mm.
So that part of me is busy listening to the audiobook.
Mm.
And the freer creative side can continue and just do its thing, and it's absolutely amazing
Mm.
what difference it makes to the end result.
Mm.
So or I would get myself into the mindset of and decide that a work coming from flow is just so much more authentic and real than me controlling it, and get myself in the mindset with getting quiet with a piece of clay, just doing a pinch spot, allowing it to be whatever it wants to be, um, and really setting the intention of allowing this. There's this beautiful book that I often go to, of Sarah Van Branach, Simple Abundance, where she says the process of art is a divine collaboration.
Mm.
It's not something that I create. I am the channel, and my hands, my touch is required, but the energy and the genius flows through me from God,
Mm.
and to be aware of that, so that
Mm.
I can take myself less seriously in the process.
Mm.
I think is very important. Also for me, I think as a one on the Enneagram, in terms of perfectionism, in terms of wanting to get it right, to not take myself so seriously,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
to not control it so much.
yeah,
But it's very much awareness of that.
yeah. That plays a big part. The awareness of the ego coming to the fore, wanting to take over.
Yeah.
All right, but that's now in a creative setting where, in a sense, it's easy to distinguish it and to witness it. But in daily life,
Mm.
uh, where or what helps to be in flow in daily living?
I think again it has to do with with a stance. Um, with this, with looking at your life, and I think it builds as you go along, and you find that the less you control, or the less that you try to plan everything to the last detail, and that you're not adaptable, you can't.
So, in other words, you manipulate all the
you
time.
you just you just it has to be done this way, and that's the only way, and you don't allow for anything to take you down another route to where
Mm.
you want to go. um So it's very much, I think, a stance. And for that to happen, you have to, I think, every day almost tune in.
Mm.
And the way that you do it, maybe you can tell a bit about that, how your
Mm.
days start.
Um, because it is tapping into this big narrative taking place.
Yeah, important to
Yeah.
realize that.
We part, my life story isn't the main narrative of this world.
No, and I am not creating. I am not the manufacturer of my life.
Yeah,
As if that's the only thing that's happening.
that's right.
It's I'm just this tiny little cog in the machine.
But simultaneously an important one.
Important,
Yeah,
yes, of course.
yeah. But there's this bigger narrative. And in order to tap into that big narrative, in order to enter into the flow, to come back to my practice. That is the function of the practice. The practice grounds us in flow. The practice grounds us in the bigger narrative. The practice holds us there, um, comforts us in that setting. So, and it comforts the ego in the sense that once the ego knows that I'm safe and that it doesn't flare up that much. So in other words, I find that my practice helps me immensely. Without the practice, I really struggle. So my practice in the morning is to write in my journal. My meditation practice that I do late afternoon, early evening, then it's a quiet time and I can do that, because both of these practices, or any practice where I'm consciously tapping into the more than me.
Ah, that's nicely put.
The more than me. It's amazing how I can slip into a position of me, myself, and I.
And everything depends on me.
And everything centers on me,
Yeah.
and everything about my life is so important, and people should respect it and take note of it or whatever. But those practices help me to tap into the more than me. And
I think also, and to realize that you're just in this flow, in this. It's not that we have to get into flow. We are there. We need to be aware that it's there.
Exactly.
So it's sort of you in the river, but you are swimming for dear life.
Yes.
Or you are, I don't know, you're trying to create the water.
Yeah.
You are trying to manufacture the, So it's not that. It's the flow is there. It's for us to surrender to it.
Yeah.
So for me, and that's the main purpose of my practice, especially my meditation practice, is to surrender to float.
Yeah.
To float in that flow.
Yeah.
And there is such a safety and such a feeling of rest that comes over me.
Yeah.
That is what I want all the time.
Yeah.
And it must be possible in day-to-day living as well. And I think we see it, and it's like little building blocks. The more you allow your days to flow, and it's not that you don't plan or that you don't have appointments,
no.
that you keep. It's not a blindly, it's like, but even that, even making an appointment goes with taking into consideration how your normal feeling of not being rushed, not being pushed in a deadline,
Driven.
not being driven. So there's also that to really allow yourself to take that seriously.
Yes, yes. Listening to you talking and identifying with what you are saying, actually, when we step into the flow, we step into awareness of the presence of God.
Yeah. And it's in the moment.
And it's in the moment.
So it can be nowhere else than in the moment. And it opens up in the moment.
Yes.
And I think we've experienced that so many times in terms of, especially on retreats, where you do not have any idea who the people are that's coming, what the interaction will be. And by allowing it to unfold, we often look back on a retreat and we are dumbfounded. Because it's not something that we could have manufactured. It's not something that we could have planned. And I think that all of that helps us to trust more in this.
That's it. And when we are talking about flow and to become aware of the presence of God, being active in what is, it's something that Jesus spoke about. Because it ties into an awareness and a living according to the rhythms of nature.
Yeah.
According to the rhythms of the world we inhabit.
Because we are also natural beings.
Yeah. So when Jesus says, go and have a look at the lilies of the field. They don't sow. But even despite of that, they don't fret. But even King Solomon wasn't dressed as beautifully as they are. Who's dressing them? What is happening when nothing is happening? What if we can become aware of all the things happening without me instigating it?
Or keeping it afloat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in other words, that principle of Jesus of get into the rhythm, get into the flow, become aware of things happening without you forcing it. And the beauty of that and how it plays out. That's exactly what he's talking about.
And I think nature is the perfect example of flow. Nothing stops summer. Nothing stops winter from coming.
Nothing.
Day and night.
Exactly.
It's us and our society that turns things around, and people has to work night shifts, and it's very unnatural for our bodies to live like that.
So on a very practical level, how to get into flow, how to become aware of presence of God, presence of life, be aware of the way the ego wants to take over.
Yeah.
Be aware of the fears of the ego, because the ego is always on the verge of hysteria. This is going to be the worst. This is going to turn out so bad. Become aware and say, this is ego.
Yeah.
This is ego.
And it's fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
So become aware of that. Have a practice that helps you to tap into the bigger narrative.
And that also makes the ego, I don't want to use a pacifier, but also puts the ego at ease. Yeah.
And then be aware of nature and the rhythms of nature and life happening and unfolding in nature without me having a huge part in it in terms of influencing seasons, night and day, all of that too. But almost take a page out of nature and say, I want to live the way nature lives
Yeah, unfolds.
and unfolds.
I think also in terms of just because it's a process to maybe at the end of the day look back and
Yes.
and to see where flow happened, where I was in that. It's always happening. When did I actually surrender to it? How was it different to the other times in my day? Just also for the awareness of it.
Yes.
And the more that awareness grows, the more we can actually act on it.
Yes. Yeah. That helps.
Yeah.
So it's almost like exercising a muscle.
Yeah. And to just to keep doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still in the process of discovering and exercising the muscle. But thank you that we can share this and have this conversation. And next week we hope to talk again.
Keep well, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.